Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I am your host, Matt Belair, and today's guest is a starseed, a lightworker, and a wayshower. After years of living in New York City and working in the financial services industry, she had a reawakening and became an accredited life and awakening coach, remote soul healer, Reiki master, mystic, and teacher. She has a master's in linguistics and has studied anthropology, Eastern and Western philosophies and religions, metaphysics, Vedic knowledge, neuroscience, biochemistry, psychology, principles of quantum physics, shamanism, and energy work. Her mission is multidimensional and extends way beyond the limitations of 3D. Welcome to the show, Isabella Greene.
Hi. Wow.
Hey.
Quite an intro there. Is that me? Is that all me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Amazing.
All right.
Yeah.
How are you?
Okay. I'm doing amazing. We sorted it out. We got through the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I'm super excited to have you on. And we had met in Sedona, and you were awesome. And I watched you speak at Cosmic Awakening, which was amazing. I got to experience a bit of a meditation, sound healing combo type of deal, which was amazing.
The portal opening experience.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't
Yeah.
even know that was happening. People were telling me that later. I just felt that something went through me and took me out and took out all of the 400 people in front of me. That was
Right.
a portal opening experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And so when we set up the podcast and I got to look through some of your past work and where you are now, because I was familiar with some of the work that you're doing, I was really excited because it's far broader, more experience than I had imagined, more touch points, shamanism, neuroscience. It kind of all blends in and goes to spirituality. Then we have an upgraded thing that we had talked about before the show. But before we get into all of that awesomeness, I just wanted you to introduce yourself a little bit to what your background is and how you got to where you are today, because it started, very 3D financial industry, doing all that kind of stuff. Then you have the awakening experience and you learn all these amazing things. You're around all these incredible teachers, and your rate of projection is pretty quick. It's pretty fast. So
that is true. Yeah. Well,
so do you want to speak on that? Sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm so excited. I'm interrupting the host. Well, I came in awakened. When I was a child, I had experiences, cosmic experiences, multidimensional experiences. As a teenager, I had the abilities and ability to remote view and do all kinds of stuff. And then I came to the US because this is the land of opportunity, the American dream. Was hot. From Russia, I came to the US. I was 21. And here in the US, I made a decision to shut down all of these abilities because knowing magic, knowing metaphysics, knowing how things work and what really matters in life, what really doesn't, really stands in the way of fighting for survival. You don't really want a corporate career when you know that all that is, not really takes you anywhere except that whole survival rat race. But I had to because I was here by myself. I came to the US, I had $80 in my pocket and like a little gym bag of clothes, and I've never been back, so it was a one-way ticket to an adventure. And so I had to make a life here, and making a life in the US was taking a corporate career. So I remember the day when I decided that I'm going to shut down my gifts and stop seeing the auras, around the trees, and just all of that. I was like, oh, none of that is relevant anymore. I have to get corporate. And within a few months, everything just went away, and I forgot for 20 years. For 20 years, I was in American coma, which is the American dream. And then in 2010, American dream laid me off, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. Although I had a super awesome job because I traveled the world. It was one of my dreams to travel the world, and I traveled the world on corporate account.
Nice.
So people will say, how did you get this dream job? But it was stressful, and I was sick. I was sick in every part of my body. I was an evil bitch from hell, quite frankly. Pardon all the words here, but I was a nasty person. It was stressed out. So in 2010, uh, I met a gentleman who, by in passing, someone who tapped me on the third eye and said, "This is what you're here to do: is help people." Like, wow. And then I figured out that I've been doing this my whole life, except it was kind of on the background somewhere. And then I started taking energy work with the really talented healer in New York City. And probably on the second session, all of these memories came back in. Boy, did I cry, because I really realized that I tore away this whole major part of myself, like most of myself. And then I met Dr. Joe Dispenza, and started doing his meditations. And from that point on, everything just came together really, really quickly. So 2010 to 2012, I was already doing remote energy work, and stuff that I'm doing now is beyond my own comprehension, quite frankly. So that's the
Amazing.
story.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, we're both Dr. Joe Dispenza alumni, so proud for that.
Yay!
So if you guys aren't familiar with Dr. Joe, he has the leading science on showing people how meditation can cure them. They can cure themselves of terminal illnesses, any illness, through meditation and the power of the mind. And he has Kundalini experiences on EEG scans, spontaneous healings. I've even heard one of his stories when I went to the advanced workshop, where the girl had a Kundalini experience, and then she basically saw all of it. She didn't know who they were at first, apparently, but all of the people her husband had killed, he was a sniper in the military, and he had severe post-traumatic stress disorder from doing that. And so she saw them all and actually sent them over. And Dr. Joe didn't know what had happened, but he asked her, like, hey, what happened? Because you spiked into the millions or whatever. And she told him that story. So, he starts very grounded, because I love him, because it's easy for me to say wild stuff like you can heal your body, and you can astral project, and you can go to other dimensions, because I'm sitting here in a Bruce Lee suit and a galactic hood on with a beard, and I could just say these things. But I'm not a doctor, and he is in that room in front of doctors, physicians, really smart people, really into the 3D world, and he's telling them, hey, and people in the audience with terminal illnesses, you can heal yourself through meditation. So I just wanted to give people like a little grounding of the power of the mind, because you and I both know how powerful that is, that that your own thoughts are going to create disease in the body. So I guess where my first question would go is, with your experience, keeping it very grounded, like how would you start to relate to someone who is new to these concepts, right? They're kind of just going along in their daily life, and they're getting sick every now and then, and they haven't really touched on opening up to a bigger picture. How would you relate this information on to kind of start walking the path, opening up a little bit through maybe a personal story or examples?
Well, my personal story is that I healed myself through this, through all of the practices. But the truth is that uh, physical healing is a side effect of reconnecting with your original soul's blueprint, your original purpose, your original mission here, and the original state of being. How do I deal with people who know nothing about it? Well, these are not my favorite clients, I tell you, because nowadays I bring in people who are all out already, and they already figured that out, and so we just upgrade them into more action and more like intergalactic missions and stuff. But the ones I do once in a while still get the ones who know nothing about it. And so you really start very gently, you very gently start introducing them to themselves. You first, in my practice, I ask them to put the whole um, concern about their physical conditions aside, and focus on reconnecting with who they really are, and remembering what they knew when they came in as children. Well, as when they were born, they knew exactly who they were. Until the age of 3, they knew exactly who they were. Going back to those joys and experiences and passions, and knowing what it is that they were here to do before everything got messed up, and usually with these kind of people, it takes a few weeks. I do a 5-week program with the people who are starting from scratch like that. And so I slowly and gently, I give them exercises. They're very simple. I actually simplified everything to the point that the 3-year-old can get it. That actually 3-year-old will get it better than the finite grown up, the grown ups that argue with me that everything that I tell them, they say, no, but I cannot. I understand, but I cannot. But that's not me, but I cannot, And so for me, it's working through those barriers really slowly and explaining, gently getting in there in between the I cannot, it's like a cage, it's like really solid cage of I cannot. And we go in between really gently and get the mind to start playing, because once you connect with that inner child with them, that's it. The door opens, and then session after session, they get more and more excited. And by the end, they say, "Wow, my condition went away or improved, or no longer even matters," and then it improves on its own. Because I believe that healing the body is a side effect of finding your way back to your own self.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really powerful statement. That's one of the first notes that I took. I'm going to quote you on that one because it's amazing. And I totally resonate with that and believe it 100%. So would you mind just sharing a little bit, maybe a couple of those tools? So if somebody's ready to go, because the problem is if you're older people, same with me in sports psychology and the Zen Athlete book and what I do, it's easier to teach a kid. It's for the kids because they don't have all this conditioning set up, all these limitations. So with an adult, you have to unconditioned, take out that wiring, and then show them a new set of wiring where the kids are like, hey, you can do anything. Let's start with quieting your mind and putting in and programming what you want yourself. So do you want to just share maybe a couple of your favorite tools just to get people moving in that direction?
You're going to be amazed how simple that really is. It is always right in front of our faces. All of the tools are right in front of our faces. That's my belief. I just worked with a woman who is in her 70s, and and these are the toughest cases because they are so conditioned to believe that they are a certain way that it's like drilling through concrete. So the sessions are really heavy. But what you do is you really
I know it. It's like talking to my dad sometimes. It's like, oh God.
And first of all, you step into the place of non-judgment and really have to see where they're coming from. And so I start from giving them the whole picture. I do what I call the medley session, meaning I trace the entire soul journey. And so I'm able to tell them the entire soul journey, meaning from cosmic origin through incarnations until this day, until what happened with the parents, what happened in their childhood, what kind of trauma they had in childhood. I can pick all that information from the quantum field because I just from looking at their picture, the people that I've never met. And the accuracy of that just blows their mind. They go like, whoa, how do you know this? So that's the moment they start listening. They start listening because I gently explain to them, okay, I can see the dynamic with your parents just from looking at the picture. I have this talent to be able to read pictures, and then I move it to the next level and I read the energy field, and I can tell where they're blockages are. And so the first session is really very powerful because it gets them curious. And then the tools, you ask for the tools. I mean, the simplest tool that everybody knows, but not too many people use, is the eye gazing exercise. You know that moment when you're super in love and you're looking the other person in the eye, and you just lose it. It just feels not like lose it. You lose all touch with the present, with reality, and it just takes you into this whole other realm. Well, that's the divinity in them that we're observing. That divinity is in your eyes too. And so just I bring them, I make them do eye gazing with themselves when they're on the phone with me, and people end up crying. I've never looked in my eyes. I've never really, and I ask them to look in their eyes in the mirror until they feel like there is someone else looking back at them. Who is that someone else? That's the part of their soul that has not been looked at or connected with in years and years and years and years. Most of the time, never. And so that's the entryway. That's the entryway to losing the loneliness. That's the entryway to losing the fears, because you find that space of peace and balance, and that there is that presence inside, and so that makes them even more curious. And then of course we go into self-love and connecting, and I ask them to write a letter of forgiveness for yourself. And so all these tools are very simple. That's very beginner level, and usually, and also, the meditations in the morning and at night, as far as never sleep on the negative thought, never sleep on the negative frequency. So we create exercises for them that take them back to happy moments, or visualizing happy moments, so that they can start falling asleep easier. And people can't sleep because they're stressed out, and that's usually a part of their condition. So the tools are very simple, but I have not been working with people who need this. This is so beginner. This is my 2012 level. Now I'm 2015, and the ones that are coming to me now, they have gone through all this already. They've done significant amount of connecting with themselves, and they're just looking for their what's my next level, the next level of service, really, the next level of purpose. So hopefully that answers it a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Well, you've also been doing a lot of time traveling because it's 2017.
Oh.
You've been going forward and back too much.
Isn't it? Yes, I know, because telling you these things was just like really turning all the wheels back to when was that the last time that I did this. But some people need, I teach them to raise their, like, little exercises to raise their frequency. That's very simple, really, and that just opens the door. So the lady who was in her 70s, by the end of us, and her answer to everything I told her was, I can do that. I cannot do that. No, I cannot do that. No, it's not me. I cannot do that. But slowly her curiosity picked, and she started, because I would go out into the field and say, hey, I know you like to dance or you like to sing. And she said, oh my God, how do you know that? I've never told anyone I wanted to be a singer when I was a child. I was like, well, I can tell you that back. And how about go and take singing lessons? No, I cannot do that. And then she thinks about it, and then she went and she started taking singing lessons. She's opening her throat center. And she said, oh my God, I heard that voice. And whose voice is that? That's like a divine voice. And all of that started coming through. And of course, every session I'm doing energy work with her. And she's in that beam of like blasting her with that cosmic love. And everything just cleared. By the end of the program, she said, wow. My friends are telling me I'm a different person. And she said, you gave me the whole different reality now, So, well, it's not that I gave her, I just turned her around back to the original idea of her soul when she came into Earth. So I hope this answered it.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to do. I wanted to give a little foundation before we a launch pad, if you will, a base, the 3D base, before the next questions are coming, because I know what's coming. But I was going to say about that, the mirror strategy. I came up I came across that one a long time ago, and
Yeah.
basically what the strategy was to look in the mirror and say who. And so there's also a vibration with the word who when you do it like prolonged, and your
Mhm.
face starts to vibrate and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. So I can attest to the eye gazing. I call it the who mirror technique. You just go who, and then your face vibrates. It's kind of like Om. You can do Om or just look at yourself, and you're gonna see yourself. You know, it's good because you're looking right at yourself and you're looking at your soul, and it does things subconsciously,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really powerful. And then, like you said, the meditation, a lot of these basic techniques, a lot of people, they get stuck in the hamster wheel of finding money where even the basic ones are a huge stretch. Like, I don't got time for that. You know, their energy is so low from their daily task of survival that they don't have the time to read a book, to, you know, watch an hour podcast, to do that because they're stuck, you know. So it's good to have a little base. Meditation is good. Look in the mirror is also a practical technique. What do you got? I can see your
They
face ready to say
think
something.
that they don't have time. And
Yeah.
actually, Dr. Dispenza says that in his workshops, that the main object, the main barrier to your progress is going to be you thinking that you don't have time. And it's a
Yep.
choice. Not having the time is a choice, because I get up no matter when I have to be somewhere. I get up and meditate because I know that I need that in the middle of the night, especially before something super important. I get up in the middle of the night and meditate because I know that it's going to change everything. And people who think that they cannot, that don't have time, that's an excuse. And also with the mirror, who who is there? Like, I love the who part,
Yeah.
because it's like, who is there? That's the question, you know. And I tell them, I literally tell them, stop looking at your wrinkles, stop looking at your nose hair, stop looking at the color of your eyes, and just focus on that inner being. And it takes effort. People sit, I tell them, sit 30 minutes with the mirror. You know, people have to really get by through the, you know, the physical first. But when that slightest, that second, when they feel that movement of the divine inside their own eyes, that's it. We're in. We're in for the upgrade.
Yep. 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 I love that. Yeah, and I think that it's so important too to say about the time thing. So it becomes a necessity. So in Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, people with terminal illnesses, they'll come to him because they now have the necessity. They're like, I want to live, so I'm willing to try anything. So now they can find the time to meditate an hour or two a day. And it's the same experience I have in sports and teaching athletes. When I work with an extreme sports athlete, that if they do this move that they're wanting to do, and if they don't land it, they could die. They'll probably break their legs. Something bad will happen. So they have a necessity now. And so necessity kind of forces people to do these things. But then after the necessity's there, then they just can have the habit. You know what I mean? They don't have a, you know, we need to find that reason without the necessity. You know, you need to be able to find the time without having a terminal illness first, you know, and just, uh, you know, start the practice because you do have the time, right? And that is definitely a mental blocker.
And the unfortunate fact right now on Earth is that people, majority of population only upgrades through crisis. You know, so
Yeah.
crisis
Yep.
of health, or emergency, or like you said, the necessity, something that kicks in the butt and they have no choice. You know, I am a big supporter of not waiting for that. You know, why create something awful when you really know that your soul is calling you forth right now, especially with all of the information that's available, with all of the practitioners that are here to help you, with all of the um, energies, cosmic energies, earth energies. We're moving through the tunnel of constant upgrades. Join in. Don't wait for the crisis. Join in and bring yourself into a fulfilled and happy place, because once you connect with all of that, of who you are, where you came here, and what you're here to do, the missions, it's exciting. It's an amazing life. It's way more fulfilling than the corporate job and a big fat paycheck. I tell you that from my own personal experience. So yeah, let's not wait for crisis. Let's do it. Let's go, people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and kind of give you the key to, go wherever you want, because now we have a little bit of a base. I spent 2 months in Sedona, which is the hub of all kind of galactic aliens, healers, fairies, angels, everything. I got to see Nassim Haramein speak. I was at 2 weekend conferences. That's where I met you. That's where I saw Clifford Mahudi, which is a Zuni nation elder, talking about aliens and star people that his nation knew forever. David Lombert Senepas, who was on the show, also talks about the star nations. So the native cultures know about the star nations. They have ancient, that's their lineage. That's like, they know this. They live off the land. There's physicists. There is Michael Tellinger. We have ancient technologies. We had the Hertogs. Those guys are intense. So everybody's super intense. And so the way that I kind of can describe it maybe is that, people are kind of locked in the matrix. We have this very elaborate, very sophisticated system to basically get your money to keep you enslaved. I was watching Seven Bomar yesterday, and he said work is going to a place that you don't want to go, to make money. And he's like, well, what is slavery? Like, you go to a place that you don't want to go to, doing things you don't want. He's like, that's what it is. And he's like, when you can recognize that, then you can now find a solution. It's kind of like if you're an alcoholic, like, you first got to accept that you're an alcoholic, and that's kind of what's it, right? So we need to, but once we know that, we can start to plan our exit strategy. So, your new mission, if we get to 2017 where you are now, is to prepare beings for their missions. And you're a multi-dimensional upgrade station. I have a friend, Crystal Perkins, who's been on the podcast twice. She's a multi-dimensional communicator, so she kind of is a translator for different entities and races, apparently. And she's probably the most awakened being I have ever met. And I've watched her work in real time, and it's always blown my mind. So do you want to speak about where you are now, what you're doing for work, and what you think is going on the planet? Because for me, it's a lot bigger than your job, with what's going on here. I think that we're in the ascension process, and where I'm at with that right now, and you can say where you are, is that we're moving from physical beings to light beings, to expanded beings, to remember our cosmic origins, to remember that we can navigate between dimensions and worlds, and really way out there kind of stuff. And for me, that's totally fine to say, because I can go into a meditative state where this experience happens directly. I can do yogic breathing, where again, I experience this state of mind that's so far beyond human. It's so far beyond it that it won't even let you come and describe it, because you can't. It's impossible. It's like a duck becoming conscious, and then the duck comes back to the other ducks and he's quacking, and they're like, well, what was it? He's like, oh, I don't believe you. Quack. You don't have the words or language for it. It's so far beyond, but it's this inner knowing that's in you, and you can't take it out now. And so that's, you're starting to connect with who you really are. So I'll just preface it with that, and then you can, stay where you are with your work and what you're doing.
Well, you just gave me about 10 things to comment on, and I probably will only remember one or two, but I want to start from Sedona. Being in Sedona, right? I've been in Sedona for 5 years, and so we really are in a whole different reality here, in Sedona. It seems. And when I encounter friends or people that visit from, I call it mainland, right? From the mainland, everything outside of Sedona is mainland for me. So when they come from conventional environment and they say, I think I believe that aliens exist. For me, that's that's like it's shocking at this point, because it's like hearing someone say, I think I believe there are cats on this planet, you know. Like it's like, what? So that Sedona really takes you onto a whole different level, but you have to want to go. You have to want to go there. And um, I started moving really fast into what I am doing. I arrived in Sedona in back to 2012. In 2012, I did not know how to do remote energy work or any energy work at all. I was just doing coaching back then. And then through crisis also, because my mother was really ill on the other side of the world and I wanted to help her. And all of a sudden, I was shown how to do remote energy work. Bam. And I started doing sessions. Then sessions started expanding and expanding and expanding. And with every session, I learned more and more about what I can do. And at some point, and then I also started doing in 2014, I started doing nighttime meditations that Dr. Dispenza taught us to open up the third eye. But for me, I believe that was because I was already seeing a lot of stuff outside of this dimension. But doing these meditations helped me to develop what I call a multidimensional brain, meaning your hardware, that part, your hardware upgrades to be able to process multiple dimensions and multiple realities simultaneously. So you can be sitting here talking to Matt Belair on in the physical form, using your 3D brain to do that, and at the same time be aware that there are aspects of yourself that are other dimensional, that are doing other stuff at the same time, and you kind of have all of that information available to you through this physical computer. So this is where I am at now. And so my work is very much in alignment with that, with my own progress as I moved from being just coaching based on the law of attraction and whatever I was doing back in 2012 to figuring out that there is no time and space. When you focus on someone, then you can connect with their energy field, and then you focus more. That's the next level. You focus more. You go into the quantum field of information, the infinite field of information, and you can collect any information about them, and answer. This is why people send me questions. I can answer the questions. I can communicate with the ones who are passed on physically, well, no longer in the physical form, but they're still around. I can talk to them and ask the questions for their families and bring very detailed answers that blow people's minds. And then I also have missions that are outside of this density, and most of the people that I work with now do as well, whether they are aware of that or not. So your friend that you mentioned, she is the interpreter for species, for intergalactic species, I understand, right? Or for non-physical beings, and maybe some of them can take physical form or not. I've been onto those crafts where everyone has to dock on a different level because the frequencies are so different. You have to spend some time in that space for some to raise the frequency, for some to lower, so that they can all sit in the same room. Well, it's not a room, it's an energetic space. They can all meet in an energetic space and have a negotiation, for example, or a discussion of some sort. Being the upgrade station, well, I was doing a session with a very advanced person here, multidimensional being in Sedona, and he asked me to perform a specific task, preparing him for the mission that he was going on, also multidimensional mission. And I said, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. And he said, just let it come through. Okay, so I started letting it come through, and boy, we both, at the end, he was going, I can't move my arms because the physical form was just blasted. The physical form was fried through that session. But during that session, I observed that his multidimensional aspect, that was like the commander in that mission, was docking into a station, which was me. And that station is not in a physical, it's a non-physical space that is myself, and also the space itself too. It's the same like you take a craft like the UFO thing. How do they move? How they operated, they're thought operated, and they also, a lot of them are non-physical. It's that quantum travel. So the space um, is held somewhere where I can connect with beings of all sorts, or aspects of human beings of all sorts. And they come in and I do the necessary adjustments for them. That was the session where I observed this work, that my multidimensional aspects, I would say, because I'm able to work with various types of beings, which means that I have to have the frequency to match them out there, and awareness of that here in 3D, which honestly blows my mind, But during the session itself, I observed that, and my clients saw that station as well, so that was confirmed. And since then, I just have that awareness that people are basically docking in for upgrades. Both people who I'm working with here and telling them, look in the mirror, there's all that stuff going on still up in other dimensions, because we're docking in, and on every level that they're ready for, and there's some levels they're not ready for that I assist them to go into by bringing in that energy. So I guess that's how so I now say that I am the upgrade station. I'm operating an upgrade station in space. There's no one else there. There's no team. It's just me and all of the multidimensional aspects of me that interact with beings who match these aspects energetically. So these are dimensional beings. So that's the description of the upgrade station.
Amazing. It's mind blowing. It's amazing. And, just for the listeners out there, I can say that my friend Crystal and also my friend Shore have spoken about this for a while. They say that they have their Earth job, but they also have their multidimensional job. Now, for me, in my experience on this planet so far, I've only touched that space a bunch of times. I can go into it. I don't navigate around it in the same way that I hear others can. But my friend Shore has been meditating, medicating. It's kind of like medicating, 10 to 12 hours a night for over 2 years. And so I've meditated, quite a lot, over years and years. And I've had these experiences. So I'm aware of the possibilities, and it's not a stretch for my mind. Some people, it might be a little bit of a stretch. So just for clarity, when you say you're on a ship and you're doing things, is that like in your astral body? Like, how do you experience that?
Well, that's different. That's different from the upgrade station. Are you referring to what I said before, that when you go onto the ship to have communication with your, let's say, galactic family, or I don't know, Arcturian Council, or someone that you are affiliated with in the non-physical? Is that the ship you're asking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that I do that during the meditations. So I do my nighttime meditations that Dr. Dispenza taught us. And the first part of it is to clear the mind and get all of the stuff out of the mind, so there is nothing the mind is hooked into here to think about. So I sit for a while. That's why it takes 2 hours for me. Sometimes longer, sometimes less. But so I sit and clear everything from the day. So everything that's in 3D is out of the way. Then I do a round of intense breathing that triggers my Kundalini movement, and that's like a rocket fuel, literally. It just like sends you out of your you like that champagne cork, just you're gone, and the last thought that my body says, I'm gone. and then there is that float in the dark space, and then the consciousness says, hey, all right, we're here, we're not here to like, oh, this is so cool. We're going into a meeting now because I have questions. I've been requested to go, and I received that message during the day. It's like, oh, I need to go tonight. So um I go, it's like a mothership from what I've observed, and I'm in my fifth dimensional body originally when I'm leaving from the third dimensional body to get there. But there's some sort of a process which I cannot describe right now that moves you higher and higher in frequency. So I would be observing that I'm docking into the station, and there'll be like a blackout time, because I think that this is the time when we have energetic adjustments done, like a station where your energy body, the fifth dimensional energy body, gets adjusted, so you can go and interact with ninth dimensional beings. And it's just like a level of consciousness, but it's also a level of frequency, a level of energy of yourself. And so I will see that, oh, here I'm like blacked out, and all of a sudden, next thing I know, that I'm seeing the beings, and there are various beings that come into that station, and we sit and we have discussions. So I kind of go there for evaluations, like, what am I doing? Am I doing it right? And it's usually like, yeah, you're on the right track, or like they tell me, oh, it's time to start that project, which I just started a project that I know nothing about, but oh, I'm like blind leading the blind, but I'm doing it because the direction is so clear. It's like, all right, enough, you done enough, and now it's time to start this new project. So okay, I'm starting it. That's where I get the guidance. I get the guidance from the meetings with the council, and there are Arcturians there, and there are Pleiadians there, and there are other races present. Andromedan representatives were there recently. As a matter of fact, one connected with me, and it was like plugging my fingers into electric socket, because I went right back into my body, and when I landed, my body was just like, like as if I just got hit by lightning. I was seeing blue sparkles and like fireworks, and every cell in my body was like shaking, and uh basically like having an orgasm in every cell in your body, and also seeing like the blue fireworks. I was like, whoa, that was really intense. But that like should like brought me right back to my physical form. That's happened in the middle of the night when I am in meditation. So I consciously leave my physical form to go. When you do these things in dream time, you're in 4D, 4.5D, and then on the craft, I see these beings, and they look like sleepwalkers. They can see, they can observe that, but they cannot really interact. Because they are not consciously plugged in. That's what I've seen, and so they have been pointed out and been, oh, these people are dreaming. They're dreaming, they're seeing this, but they're just dreaming it. So they're going to come back and say, oh, I had this dream that I was on the craft. Well, you were, but you were not really fully operational because you're dreaming, unless it's lucid dreaming, but it's a whole different level.
Okay, well, that's pretty amazing stuff. It's really amazing stuff. So just to give people a little bit of a handle on this from other perspectives, Dan Winter, who's a physicist, he worked with Buckminster Fuller. If you look him up, Dan Winter, he's got all kinds of YouTube videos, and I watch them and I listen to him, and I still have no idea what he's talking about. But I do it anyway because it's like it's sinking in there somewhere. Yeah. And he talks about how you need to it's all about memory and taking memory through death and your aura through death. And he talks about some pretty wild concepts through the lens of being a physicist. And trust me, whoever's listening, he's smarter than probably all of us combined. He's ridiculous. But he always grounds it, and then he'll say something completely wild, but he just says it as a matter of fact. And he's like, what we're doing here is creating us in Jason Styles from My Pyramid is going to probably get mad at me. I don't know how accurate this is. But charge, spin, density, taking our aura and memory through death. So it starts, he talks about with dream time and lucid dreaming. The same with Seven Bomar. And if you don't know who Seven Bomar is, I highly recommend checking out his work as well. And it starts with lucid dreaming. It's the same with Toltecs. So you're bringing consciousness to another realm. And so with all the work that you're doing, you have to be able to clear your mind. Most people can't even do that. So, when you say this concept about a spaceship and other beings, well, you can't even clear your mind. You wake up and you have monkey mind all day, and you're just trying to find, you're basically, if you look at the chakra system, you're at the root chakra, you're at survival. And so in order to survive, you need money, and you need to watch out so people don't kill you. That's really what you're worried about. You're worried about, you're in a cave, you got to go find some berries, and then you're making sure somebody doesn't come over and club you in the head. That's where you're at. And that's fine, but you can't sit in a meditative state and try to ascend your consciousness and your spirit, right, when you're worried about somebody clubbing you in the back of the head, because you got to be awake and aware so that doesn't happen. So it's a process, and where I am in the process is just far enough along to know that you're telling me the truth, because I can see it in your face, and I've had also these experiences where they're along those lines, maybe not as intense, but definitely in that realm. And so I just wanted to kind of bridge that for the listeners. And so, wait, you want to say something?
Yeah, and on that point of clearing the mind, I would recommend doing that every day. Why it's easier, it became easier and easier for me, and now it's pretty easy, is because every single night, and at night when your left brain is asleep still, you kind of like, you're woozy, you wake up, you sit up, and you start meditating. It's not in that active gear yet, so you can literally really look at what you collected throughout the day, what were your concerns during the day, and you really see that it's whatever, it's really so irrelevant, or really so insignificant now that you all calm down and you're looking at it in the middle of the night. So I get up in the middle of the night and I look at these things and I clear that baggage day after day after day. So there's no accumulation of things to worry and think about. Once you clear that, the next morning you wake up and your big problem from the day before, it doesn't even seem like a problem anymore, because you figured it all out while you were sitting up. And then you went and you had your cosmic experience, and that takes things in perspective too. It's like, oh my God, my little tiny human experience here, worrying about what am I worried about? I don't remember, So doing that every day and clearing your mind every day makes it really much easier, and also that it raises your frequency, because you're not carrying that baggage with you, the baggage of thought. Thoughts are frequency. Thoughts are material. Thoughts become things. Thoughts are directing your life. They're directing your life whether you know it or not. So all of that stuff is really nice to clear that every day. So you kind of start every day with more or less clean slate. And it also shows you your old stuff too when you start in meditation. So I would very much recommend start your practice if you haven't yet, and make sure that a part of it is releasing all of these concerns that are really, really meaningless here on earth. They just take your energy and keep you in density. That's it.
Yeah. And I wanted to speak on that for a second, because I'm doing this course. His name's Cor Love. This guy is super interesting as well. He had a car accident when he was about 10 years old, I believe, and this triggered seizures. So he lost all of his memory and he kept having seizures. And what would happen is DMT would activate essentially, and he would go to these higher realms of a higher intelligence. And then he would tell his parents about it and they'd be like, you're crazy. So he stopped telling them about it, but it kept happening. He'd have a seizure. His body would create DMT, these high energy states, as he calls it. And then they would give him all this information and he would be in it. And then he's like, oh no, I don't want to come back down, because I know when I come back down, I'm going to be in my body seizuring and it's not going to be good. And then he come back down and lo and behold, he's in his body seizuring. So I'm going through, he has a really interesting program, and I've probably gone through 60 hours of his stuff, and it's really intense. It sounds like sheer madness. And then 10 hours later, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. And basically what he's saying is it's all memory. And when we're about 3 years old, maybe between 3 and 5, when we're storing memory, we're storing it in the body. So around 3 to 5 years old, we realize this, and that's when we shut down these senses, this past connection to our past lives to source, because we're taking in information like a 4K camera, and then the body's like, no, 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 no. Like if we keep storing this information, we're gonna die because we only have a terabyte of space in the body. So we got to limit this to 240p, so that way we can have an extended life experience. And so our body naturally does that because we're not able to transmute the energy or the experience, like defrag our computer. So when we have experiences every day, he's like, essentially you're storing it in the body. So when you go to the market and people are talking to you and then you have a traumatic experience, that's going to hold more space in the body. And so what we're doing every single day, it's just taking storage, but we're never clearing it. We're never emptying the trash. We're never defragging the body. And that's what meditation does. And that's the practice that you're saying. So if you're bogged down with density, and density is stress, it's lower energies of fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, all of those. So if that's what you're feeling throughout the day, well, then you're dense. There's just, it. And if you're love and feeling light and feeling hope and faith and connection and beauty and expansion, well, then you are lighter. And you have to do that. You can do that with the mind, because the mind is storing this in the body. And that's where the free will comes in for us to be able to do that. We have the free will to make the choice to connect with ourselves, to connect to the higher bits of who we are, and clear it and say, I am clearing this and I'm connecting and I'm, and then once the mind clears, it goes beyond I'm Matt and, I skateboard and I have a podcast, and all this stupid crap. It's just like, oh, whoa, you're way more than that. And also this at the exact same time. And so I can clear all that out so I can allow more of that kind of universal source to come in, that connection with myself, which is not in the mind, it's beyond the mind. And so I just wanted to go ahead.
And I can very much confirm that, because I've observed that there is an interesting process that happens, and we call it processing here in Sedona. So first, I would notice that there is a pain in the body. Then I would notice that there is an event or an occurrence or a pattern that's been happening and happening and happening. And sitting in these meditations, I would trace that. There's that tracking process that Teal Swan came up with, tracking your emotion. When was the last time you felt it? When was the first time you felt it? You start tracking that in your mind, and being in deep meditation helps you track that. You track that, and then all of a sudden you remember, oh my God, my mom did this or said this, and my father did this or said this, or my siblings, or my whatever, when I was early in school, this happened. And since then, that feeling has been with me over and over with different scenarios. And that is probably still a pattern it is recorded in your cells, just like you said, and it eventually creates a physical condition of some sort. There is a pain that you don't know why it's there, and you don't know, you can't get rid of it, and the doctors don't know, and they give you pills and whatever, and it doesn't work because it keeps coming back, right? So when you trace that experience, I've observed that you trace that experience, you remember, it's like an aha moment. Oh my God, I now know how that pattern was created. And then usually that is accompanied with intense release. They'll be crying, they'll be like being angry, they'll be being all sorts of feelings, and you like observe these feelings and you allow these feelings to run, because especially the crying and especially the emotion release, that helps the cells also to release. And it's usually a very intense process, and then all of a sudden that pain is gone, the emotions are gone, you're no longer triggered in the same space, and the new knowledge comes in place. I've observed that the new ability, every time I process the major caca from before out of my body, out of my cells, out of my state of being, by tracing it like that and sitting with it, and you really have to go and experience it. You might be feeling all kinds of awfulness when you're doing it, but sit with it, be strong. Pull it out and let it release. Let yourself cry. Let yourself just let go of all of it. When you go through this kind of process, then the new abilities will come in. You will just all of a sudden discover that you can do something that's called paranormal or supernatural that you could not do before. It's literally like, because you pull out all that storage, all that you clear the memory chips that allow now to bring in stuff that's higher frequency. It's exactly like you described. So yeah, I very much agree with what you're just saying.
Awesome. Yes. Good. I'm glad. And it's nice because you're hitting the same thing from two different angles, two different perspectives. And the people that I see at the highest level, we're all explaining it in a different kind of way, but it's all the same. It might be slightly different, but it's the exact same root, you know? So, there's a lot of different ways that we can go, but one of them I'm curious about is what is the breath process like for when you are activating your Kundalini? Is that the Dr. Joe one that he typically does, where you bring it from the Kundalini up? Are you able to share any of the processes you use so maybe the listener could experience it?
Well, I do the breath that Dr. Dispenza taught us, and that's a classic. It's a classic high level yogic practice, really. Because when you do yoga, you know that you pull your locks in. So that's the perineum, the lower abdomen, the upper abdomen. Those are the first three centers, the three chakras. So you pull that in, you squeeze that in, and you hold in these locks while you're doing the breath, and you visualize in the breath moving from your perineum through the lower centers, throughout your spine, and out of the top of your head. And what do we have on top of our head and above? That's the eighth chakra and above. That's what connects us to higher realms, so to speak, or basically to our energy bodies and our multidimensional aspects. And Dr. Dispenza explains it really well as of what happens on the physical level when we do that, because it moves cerebral spinal fluid around your body. It rejuvenates your brain by bringing additional fluids into the brain. And when you're doing that during pineal gland hours, which is between 1 and 4 a.m., and you can also focus your attention on the pineal gland itself, because energy follows attention. So you're doing that breath, that's a physical aspect. You're creating the mechanical effect in your body, but you're also moving the energy. You're visualizing the energy moving through your body out of the top of your head, or you can focus it also simultaneously. You can also focus it in the third eye. And so energy activates that center plus the fluids in the body. So yeah, I'm following Dr. Dispenza's method, but this is the breath that I do. And my understanding is that it's the high level yogic breath. I think it's called pranic breath.
Amazing. Yeah. I just want to double check that because I experienced the breath as well. Went through and had some interesting experiences with it. What was I gonna say about that? But yeah, okay, cool. Yogic breathing is important. Do it. It's good. I forgot what I was going to say. I'm going to come back to it after, because where I was curious, but someone like you, what I always get curious about, okay, you're navigating different realms, we're in the multidimensional body. The one thing I want people to remember is that, we all have this ability. It's not like somebody, we have these different gifts. Like somebody might be the guy who frames your house. The next guy's going to be the guy who, does the foundation. Next person's the interior designer, whatever the case is. So it's really connecting with your unique abilities, your unique skill sets, but really working together as a team. And so with that being said, I'm just curious, what do you feel like is going on the planet as a whole? So once they're like, okay, aliens exist, super great. Like, are they bad? Are they good? There's a lot of fear around it. And I hear a lot of people go into different stories, and some of them I resonate with and some of them I don't at all. I think they're just trapped in fear. And then I also think a lot of people are trapped in spiritual ego and things like that, where they're just like, this is it. And I was like, well, that just seems like your imagination. Like, it could be very real to you in that story that you're playing out, but it doesn't feel like a whole and a balanced story. Do you know what I mean? Because these are interesting concepts, and most of them are in imagination or 5D or whatever. It's like your direct experience that you can't bring anyone with. But when you want to experience this for yourself, and that's really what the point of the podcast is, and my work is like, you can experience this. You're the master. What do you resonate with? How do you want to grow with this? And so that's very long-winded to say, What do you feel like is going on from your perspective from all these other energies and these beings, and how do you recommend people really get to connect with the ascension process or with who they really are, and actually having these experiences for themselves, be like, hey, I saw you on the spaceship, or I had my own spaceship experience, or I activated Kundalini and I didn't know what was going on. Like, can anybody kind of help me, because what the heck was that?
Yeah. Well, I first, yes, you can bring them with you. You can. I actually have a friend, a female friend, who is able to, through my third eye, we just do the third eye connection thing and connect the circuitry, hold hands and put the third eyes together. And she's able to come out of her body. I pull myself and pull her out full on during, like, daytime hours. It's not even, we're not even doing the breath. Or I would ask her to do one breath and we will come out and be gone, and literally would come back and discuss that we were just flying through stuff and seeing exactly the same thing, so sharing exactly the same visions. She's pretty advanced, that she's able, and I've had these experiences with a few people, but because I like to experiment with people and be like, hey, you know what, is this from just the inside of my head, or is this really happening? Of course, we'll have that question, right? By now, I know it's really happening, but I still like to bring people into this, and especially when the people are able to get out of the body, and then they tell you, describing the same exact cosmic landscape that you were seeing, or they were actually seeing me in my non-human form flying, and I would be only seeing like my wings or something, and she's describing the whole thing, and I'm seeing her as the whole thing, and she's only seeing her own wings. And then she told me I had a homing device that she was tracking me by, and actually that's my logo now, which I didn't know any of that. But so yes, you can bring people with you. And also in meditations and group meditations, when we're all doing that yogic breath, and one person is starting to have Kundalini experience, and the one next to him, it's like a ripple effect, because energy, that kind of energy is contagious. Being in the presence of high frequency person upgrades other people or brings them to have experiences, because this is why sometimes I personally and other high frequency beings, they just sit, you just sit with people, and the people start having visions and experiences too. But what's going on the planet, you said it very well there. What resonates with you and what doesn't, that's a true story for you, because we're all, as much as we're all on this same planet, but we're all on our own timelines. And so all our timelines are linked to our energetic state. Our energetic state is linked to our state of mind and state of processing things and experiencing and emotional levels and all that. And on this part, I wanted to mention that denying the negative emotions or shutting them down, that never works, because they're always going to come up at some point and you're going to have a freak out moment. So that's not a good practice. The good practice is to find the 0 point, meaning the center point between all emotions, where you can be an observer of the highest level emotion and the lowest level emotion within yourself, and embrace it and say, hey, you know what, I'm seeing all of it. This is me being a human. That's very normal. So the 0 point, I believe, is the good place to be. But we are, the timelines are splitting. So the fear-based programs are going to go one way, and the love-based programs are going to go another way. And there is the in-between gray area that is becoming thinner and thinner, from what I understand and what I'm observing too. Meaning, like, the people that are in the fear-based, you can't really connect with them. Like, they try to email you, they try to call you, you never get those emails, you never even receive the calls, your phone drops. When it's really wild how I'm observing how these things are happening. And I'm a big supporter of not creating any fear-based stories for the population, because you have to look at who benefits from the fear-based stories. There is a group that's running the planet that is interested in creating intergalactic wars for their profit. And by creating stories that these races are evil and they're here to eat you for lunch. By creating these stories, we are training the population to go into that support of these ideas that we need to have intergalactic wars. I am a believer that we can do things through negotiations, that we can uh, really find peaceful solutions with all kinds of beings. And I've seen all of these beings that I'm talking about on that craft where they all get together and have negotiations. And they're the same like with humans. There are better ones and there are not necessarily benevolent ones, but that's just their nature. And so that's going back into the observer mode where you can observe that it's their nature. But if you're not going to get yourself emotionally and energetically involved with that, that's never going to be a part of your experience. So I guess I don't know. Does that answer the 25 questions you asked me within your last question?
Yeah, it's a tremendous comment. So I'm gonna go a little bit more with it and see how you feel with it, because it's really piecing it together. For me, I've always just been curious on what the heck is actually happening on the planet. So when I'm having a dinner with an astrophysicist and one of the guys who has the leading information on the Sphinx, who's a university professor, at Boston, and they're all talking about the same thing, aliens, and it's not like one of them like these men are some of the smartest people on the planet, like they're not dummies, and they're saying all this stuff. So you're like, okay, cool, it really it sinks in, and there's no getting out of it. Where do you resonate with? I just read Barbara Marciniak, Bringers of the Dawn, and I've also read The Living Library, and it kind of says that planet Earth is this, a nice spot in the galaxy, apparently, where people can go in and out, and it's supposed to be this keeper of information, but of all these different life forms, all these different species. But then it got suppressed, maybe 500,000 years ago or something like that, through different Anunnaki and that kind of thing. And you could look at Gerald Clark's work, and there's so many people out there that have listed it. Go to one weekend at Contact in the Desert, and you'll hear enough. And so when I had a dinner with astrophysicist, and it was the most mind-blowing thing I have ever experienced. 5 hours of Adam Tremblay, 5 hours of stories that I couldn't even just wrap my head around. And again, this guy, probably one of the smartest guys on the planet, he's up there. And he's, I was like, well, what do I do with this information? It's kind of like with you. It's like, holy smokes, this is wild stuff. What do I do? And for him, he said the same thing, where he's preparing for his own ascension process, his own activation. And so what do you recommend? Like, does that, for me, the way that I'm seeing it is kind of how you're describing it, from everything that I've read, even in the deep spiritual texts, Bringers of the Dawn, all this stuff, that we're moving towards an age of, I like to hashtag Team Earth a lot, because like, what is possible if Team Canada and Team USA and Team Russia got together, and Team China and Team Korea? Like, we would kick butt, like all the engineers and scientists and physicists, and we just shared knowledge. We would be, among the galaxy, we'd kick ass. It'd just be like the Avengers. We'd be amazing. But the problem is, I like to tell my friends, like, oh, why don't the beings present themselves? It's like, well, we're like a toddler with a shotgun. We have nuclear weapons and we're still murdering each other. Like, we are not allowed to play with the big boys yet until we stop killing each other. Step one. So from my perspective, and I hope this is true, I don't know, but it could be the Pollyanna side of me, is that we are moving towards an Earth that makes more sense. We're in these trying times right now, but we have access to more information, more technology than we ever have, and it's exponentially increasing. So I see it as moving towards a light body to a love-based reality, community-based reality. In the Book of Ra, if you've never seen the Book of Ra, I highly recommend checking that out. They just say above 51% service to others.
Yeah.
And I like to say above 50% or 51%, not an asshole. Just kind of be cool. You're just barely making it, but that's it. And if we lived in that kind of world, which apparently that's what 2012 was, that was the shift, is globally, collectively, we kind of shifted there. So of that rant, what do you resonate with from your experiences and work, and how do you kind of see it going as an individual and a collective?
What you were saying, what do I do with all this? I think that it's very important to stay awake and to always, in all of there's so much information with the plus and with the minus, and we're kind of here and there. So first of all, im see what resonates with you, what feels good to you, what feels right to you, and also always kind of follow the money. When you're listening to the stories about evil beings and slave trade, cosmic blah 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 contracts, and humanity being used for all sorts of stuff. Follow the money and see who would benefit from generating this kind of fear, and why these stories are circulated, and why these stories are infiltrated even in the conscious communities nowadays. What are we building here? What kind of future are we building here? Because this is very similar to what we did with weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We went there, because the population, through propaganda over and over and over and over for years, knew that, oh my God, we have to go there. And there was full support for that war. Is it true? Well, it's up to you to decide what's true here. So I feel that staying awake to the stories of intergalactic enemies is very, very important. Does that feel right when you're looking at the person telling these stories? Does your heart cringe? Do you feel like kind of like, or if is there an alternative perspective? Because we are co-creators too. What we focus on gets bigger. So I choose to focus on stories and information and perspectives that generate the future of what you just said, bringing people together, bringing races together, bringing space races together, and creating that reality versus the reality of war and separation and fear that we have as human beings been playing with, whether by our own design or design of our creators. And Bringers of the Dawn, what they talk about here as far as humans being the living library is true, because we have DNA. We've been genetically created by master geneticists, and we have DNA from all species. And so from human DNA, you can recreate a lot of other species through human DNAs and through species on Earth. And that's why we're the living library, because, and all of this is in our DNA. It can be activated or reactivated, and we will have these abilities. And this is the people who had these activations and who are doing the work, and the people who have reached the consciousness of not like a little bit above the toddler with the shotgun. These are the ones who are receiving the activations and are receiving these abilities. And when you choose the perspective that to you feels right, and you can only decide for yourself. So when you choose the perspective that to you feels right, where you clear your own state of being, raise your frequency, and bring the service into the world by sharing that perspective, or sharing your state of being, sharing yourself being in a good, fulfilled, happy place, bringing the gifts that you have, offering that here with your 51% service, or I now hear 73% service. You create a ripple effect. People look at you and go, wow, with all the crap that's going on, how come you're so happy? How come you're so balanced? How come you are? And they gravitate to you, and they want you to share with them that state of mind and that state of energy. And your presence does the work. And so I think this is how we individually get involved. So meaning service, yes. Your own state of being, yes. Choose staying awake to what's going on. Always pay attention to who is benefiting from the stories that are circulated, even through the conscious communities. So this is what I think is important now. And definitely the new earth is being created, the timelines are splitting. Like I just said, the gray area is so apparent. Even on Facebook, you can see that. Like, aren't you losing people on Facebook because whatever they're posting is you, like, eventually you're not even noticing that any longer because it's not resonating with your frequency. So they're kind of just getting naturally removed from your reality. That's what is split timelines is. You know, you just no longer vibrate with the people who are not in the same place where you are at. And yeah, bringing in the new earth. That's what we're doing. One self at a time that creates a ripple effect through masses. Not us doing this now here. You know, that's service.
Beautiful, amazing. I hard agree with everything that you just said. This has been truly an amazing experience talking to you, going deep with you. I wanted to ask before we close this down, is there anything that you wish that I asked or that you want to leave the listeners with, or just something that you want to talk about? We have 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If you go onto a rant, that's fine. But I just want to know if there's anything that you would have want to leave people with after all that, because that was a lot and it was awesome.
Well, this is a really strong point, and it's so strong in my mind that I would like to repeat it again. Pay attention to the stories, because the fact that it's on coming through what we consider conscious channels does not necessarily mean that it is true. And pay attention to the ones who are seeking that, like, Hollywood spotlight. Pay attention to the ones who are giving you information because it's similar to the news and because it just generates the following. And really, really, really follow the money in your mind and see, because there is this potential that the interest to create the enemy where it does not really exist. And so pay attention, be awake, stay awake, recognize that we are co-creators, recognize that our reality is very much dependent on us, and where we give our attention, where we bring our energy is where our reality is going to be. So be very, very awake and present.
Beautiful. Yes, 100% agree. So in that, oh no, you dropped off. Oh no. Well, I don't know if she's gonna pop back in. I'm still on live Facebook, and I just wanted her to share her website. I believe it's Isabella Greene. I'm gonna make sure it's linked up in all the show notes that you can check out. Thank you, Isabella, so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and doing all the work that you're doing. It was a privilege to speak to you. Oh, there we go. You're back in, I think. Hey.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? Did you notice? Yeah.
I just giving you lots of love from this side, but I'm glad you can come back in. I was just saying thank you for your work and being who you are and reawakening into this reality. And I think that what you're saying by be aware of the message, just be discerning. Like, so if it doesn't resonate, just discern within your heart, because we need to create a love base. It's all true. I could sign up for the military and go shoot somebody, and I could be in this reality as well, and have a garden and love my community. So all realities are possible, but you as a free will creator, you get to choose that. So be very mindful with the thoughts that you're thinking, with the information that's coming in, and choose a love-based reality versus a fear-based reality, a service-based reality rather than a take your shit-based reality. And so if you can do those things, you'll probably have an easier ride. I don't know. That's just my guess. That's what I resonate with right now. But But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. Really beautiful perspectives. Where can people find more about you if they want to connect with you and your work and come for an astral travel ride and go to your space station, all that kind of fun stuff?
Well, I am at isabellagreene.com. That's GREENE at the end. isabellagreene.com if you're interested in a session. I have a little YouTube channel, Talk to Isa. That's talk with the number 2. I say I'm not super active there, but I do put my thoughts out there once in a while. And I also am on Team Light and Unite the Collective YouTube channels and on some of the Team Light programs. So yeah, just look up Isabella Greene and we can connect. And thank you,
Amazing.
Matt. This has been really wonderful. I really enjoyed our chat here. So, and thank you for inviting me to join the league of the beautiful people that you have interviewed so far. So it's been really, really profound for me. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for coming on. Love you. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and have a fantastic day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.